Bell and his comrades would stand on guard, as they now came face to face with the Destroyer and the Juggernaut, both imposing monsters, powerful forces of nature, and ones of whom they could cause great calamity and destruction. Of course, there was the plus side of not having to deal with the monstrous army anymore that had been congregated. But the bad news is that the monsters that they had defeated had all been absorbed into the Juggernaut. But what was this all leading to? Ryu would wonder. What was the Enchantress's plans? Why had she done all of this? In the end, it probably didn't matter. For now, they were in the fight of their lives, to defeat these monsters and stop them from reaching the surface. On the outside, many of the heroes who had stayed behind to fight could feel an uneasiness coming from the dungeon itself, an aura of imminent darkness and fury. Whatever was happening, whatever was going to come from out of that dungeon, for better or for worse, they had to be ready for it. Many of the gods were also on standby, among them the goddess Freya. It had been so long since she at last had to enter into combat. She had almost forgotten the sensation. But just feeling the aura that was coming from the dungeon itself, the aura of warfare, of bloodlust, fury, anger, all enthralled into one. It reminded her of that day when she fought on the battlefield, watching many of her brothers and sisters fall to the ebony blade that came from that of Gore, the God Butcher. It was always common belief that gods did not experience fear, that they were above such simple human emotion. And yet, when you watch someone you've known your whole life, people you held in high esteem, cut down and killed, and knowing that this death will be permanent, that there won't be a return, it fills a god with uneasiness, the feeling of mortality. That was the curse that the ebony blade brought upon them. So much so that just speaking the name of Gore was considered a taboo among the gods. And yet, why was that dread washing over them once again? That feeling of uneasiness, as if there were a swinging blade just above their heads, descending slowly upon them. All they could do was hope that the barrier would hold, and that somehow the crisis would be resolved. Both Bell and Beta Ray Bill would continue their fight against the Destroyer, while the others all had to pull their forces in fighting against the Juggernaut. Haruhime would use her technique, being able to boost the strength of her comrades. The technique was based solely on the number of tails that she could muster, seeing as how she were a descendant of the Yokai clan, who had a distinct power and ability of boosting the stat and strength of their allies, based on the number of tails they possessed. At max, they could boost up to 9 warriors, but Haruhime only had the ability to boost up to 5. She had to choose carefully about which ones she'd give this extra strength to. Azari, Welf, Aisha, Cassandra, and Mikoto. They were the ones who were given Haruhime's blessing, being enhanced with the strength of the yokai and pushing them forward by 10, allowing them to deal damage and fight on par with the Juggernaut. For Ryu, she channeled the power of the spider gifted to her by Anasi. For so long, she had always turned down the idea of using that blessing, because for her, she was always wrapped by so much guilt. Ryu being a part of the Estrella Familia, she learned many things about the goddess that she served. Among them, her love being Anasi. Of course, it wasn't uncommon for gods to get together, but Anansi and Estrella especially, they had something that was truly unique. Something you thought would last for all eternity, but sadly enough, when the Estrella Familia was destroyed, say only for Ryu, it pushed Estrella into a form of depression and despair that sadly no one could pull her out of. The day that Estrella ascended back to the heavens, leaving Anansi here on the earth, it was a day that his heart was truly broken. He would have gladly have left. He would have returned with her. But unfortunately, he could not. Anansi had been given a different destiny. A destiny that required him to stay on the earth. An important role that he could not forsake. He cursed having this duty, having this responsibility thrusted upon him. He bore no familia. He had no one to care for, no one at all. In his time of anger, he turned to Ryu. He offered her the chance to take his blessing, to use his power to seek revenge, since it would have been unjustly for a god to seek vengeance against the mortals. Of course, Ryu chose to do everything on her own, only accepting the blessing when she felt she'd absolutely need to, the blessing of the spider god himself. At first, Ryu thought that she would use this power only to claim her vengeance. But now she saw that this power could be used for something even greater, protecting her friends and her comrades, to uphold the justice that was instilled in her once more. That was the model that the Estrella Familia followed in, the ideal of justice and fighting for it, never forsaking or abandoning it, to uplift those who are brought down, to avenge those who cannot avenge themselves, to do right by others, even at the cost of oneself. For that price, no sacrifice could ever be too high. For so long, Ryu thought that those ideals were foolish, that perhaps the Estrella Familia's demise came from that sort of thinking. Maybe they should have given up on trying to pioneer justice. Maybe they should have given up on trying to avenge the weak. That's what led them into war with the evil Familia. That's what led them into the trap. What led to her friends. What led to them being slaughtered. Perhaps it all could have been avoided if they had just given up, if they had just turned the other way. But to do that would be to spit in the face of everything that they stood for. And Ryu simply could not allow that to happen. As they continued fighting against the Juggernaut, Azari was attempting to channel his true power, the blessing of the Panther God, Bast. One of his loyal Dora Milaje would stand guard over him. Lord Azari, are you sure that this is the wisest course of action? Do you really wish to use the power of the goddess here and now? I do not think we have much of a choice. This monster is truly ferocious, but it is not one that we cannot overcome. I understand, but you know, you have not perfected that technique, and it's dangerous every time you use it. Last time you lost control. That is why I have you here by my side, so that I will not falter this time. Remember why we came here. We cannot afford to die now. You will buy me the time I need, and I will finish this monster in one attack. The four guards would understand as they entered into a defensive formation, standing guard over young Azari. as he got into an Indian-style position and sat on the ground, closing his eyes and clasping his hands together as he began the chant. "And what exactly is your friend up to?" Welf would ask. "He is attempting to channel the power of the Panther goddess Bast. It will aid him in our fight, and it will strike down the beast." "He has a power that can do that?" Lily would ask. "If so, then it looks like we have to buy him time," Makoto would say. "Haruhime," Aisha would ask, "how long can you keep this up?" "I'll keep it going for as long as I can." "You've already used the sacred technique so many times in such a short period." The boosting power of Haruhime's was already starting to flicker among the group. They could already feel that added bonus of power fading from their bodies. Haruhime wasn't going to be able to hold out for too much longer. They were aware of this. But for now, their attacks were doing nothing more but staggering the Juggernaut, and it was at best slowing it down. That was when Ryu would stand in front of them. "You just need time, right? I can give you that. Welf, give me that magic sword of yours." Of course, Welf was a little perturbed at the idea of giving up his freshly made magic sword, especially one made from adamantite, one of the rarest of metals. But still, it'd be in better use in her hands than his, so he gave it to her and took a spare sword that one of the members of the group held. "Try not to break it, would you, Ryu? The sword's one of a kind." Ryu would catch it. "I'll try my best, but I can't make any promises." Ryu would race forward with the sword in hand. The Juggernaut, living up to its true title and name, would use its speed to try to move from out of her point of vision, hoping to appear in her blind spot and slash away at her. However, the power and the blessing given to her by Anasi, the blessing of the spider, enhancing her senses, giving her something akin to a sixth sense, the spider sense, allowing her to dodge the clawing strikes of the Juggernaut at the last moment, countering with a strike of the blazing adamantite sword, as she used her other free hand to shoot webbing at the beast. Her webs were incredibly strong, capable of restraining it just long enough as she slashed away at its arms and legs, cutting at it over and over again, the flames shooting out like sparks and igniting, sending out a fiery slash every time she managed to attack the beast. As she led the charge, it created more of an opening for the others, everyone attempting to take in their shots at the Juggernaut whenever they could. Ryu would keep its focus on her. At that moment, out of everyone who was facing it, she was the strongest. The Juggernaut would pay most attention to her. This was her chance for revenge. But not just that. To finally put to rest this weight that had been on her shoulders for so long. To vanquish the beast that took everything from her. "This is for my friends," Ryu said. "This is for my goddess. And this is for me." She took the sword and plunged it deep into the chest of the Juggernaut. While it did great damage, the beast was still standing, knocking away everyone and everything, and even Ryu herself. With both hands free now, with the blade still stuck in the chest of the monster, she began to shoot out a series of webs, webbing that connected to the monster and to the ground, to the sides of the cave walls, to the roof above. She kept shooting as much webbing as she could muster, as much webbing as she could call forth from her body, the webbing laced and imbued with her own personal magic, and with the power of the blessing of the spider. the webbing that was said to be as strong as even the strongest of metals and steels, that wasn't easy to be cut through or ripped apart. While the Juggernaut was slowly trying to get free of its integral trap, Azari had finally reached completion. A purple-like aura would emanate around his body, his eyes beginning to glow as he looked towards the beast. With this power, I call forth my blessing, the blessing of the Panther Goddess Bast. Please, Goddess, Goddess of the desert, Goddess of the sun, Goddess of the flaming winds of the east, please lend me your strength. Lend strength to your servant in his time of need. I beseech you to give me this power, the power that has been passed down from my ancestors, that has lived through in my blood, and now courses through every pore. Give me the strength of the Panther. Allow me to strike down my enemy in this moment, my one true target, this beast, the Juggernaut. Lend me your ferocity. Lend me your courage. Give me, please, give me just this one chance to strike down my foe. The aura that had surrounded Azari would transform into a panther-like beast, a construct of energy and light. This was just an ounce of the goddess Bast power. Saying the quick prayer that was needed, channeling the power forth, and calling it upon himself. The power of Bast now given life and shape. The astral projection of the great panther that stood to the size of the beast itself, the Juggernaut. The astral panther would move forth, biting and clawing away at the Juggernaut, ripping and tearing it to shreds. Everyone watched in amazement as before long, the Juggernaut, the once famed and mighty monster of the dungeon, was now reduced into submission, as the panther would bite hold at the neck of the beast, snapping it and killing it. The Juggernaut would disappear, and now only the monstrous panther would remain. It roared and yelled and bellowed, unable to be controlled for too much longer. The power was truly ferocious, and like any beast, it did not want to be caged in or confined. Azari used all of his strength to try to keep it in place, long enough to dispel it once and for all. I know you do not like to be summoned in such a way. I promise I will make it up to you. But please, you can rest now. Your job is done. I release you. The panther was charging at the group, with everyone standing on guard ready to experience the worst. But as it lunged forth, it too would disappear, as Azari collapsed to the ground. That was a technique he had only used twice before now. And out of all the times he had used it, this was probably his most successful. The last time landed him in the infirmary for almost 3 weeks. In the meantime, both Bell and Beta Ray were continuing their fight with the Destroyer. This was theirs and their fight alone. But still, it took so much effort to try to bring it down. They felt like they were making progress, but this wasn't good enough. Why? Why was it so hard to beat? If Bell had this power, this strength that everyone said he had, then why? Why couldn't he bring forth more of it? What was he still missing? Both he and Beta Ray would be knocked aside by the destroyer. Despite all the damage it had taken, it was still standing. It was truly something otherworldly. Belle. Yeah? I'm almost out of options, kid. I don't know what else we've got to do to bring this thing down. We've got to figure out something. We have to. But Belle couldn't think of anything. What else was he missing? What wasn't he getting? While Belle was still trying to rack his brain behind what he should do, Beta Ray had no intentions on waiting. I'm still standing, ugly. Is that all you got? The destroyer's eye beams would shoot out its blasting fire as Beta Ray held up Stormbreaker to counter it, blocking against the flames and holding on for dear life. At this rate, he wasn't going to hold out much longer. But what could he do? What could Belle do? What am I not getting? Everyone says I have this power. Then why? Why can't I use it? What's wrong with me? What's wrong? What is wrong indeed? Huh? Time seemed to stop in that moment for Belle. Everything being reduced to a complete halt. Who said that? Who? No need to wonder. You can say that I am but merely an observer of you, Belle Cranel. An observer? Indeed. I've been watching you for a while now. Since you inherited the power of Thor, I've wished to see what you were truly capable of, what you could do. I have watched your battles. I've watched you struggle, and I've watched you suffer. But you have exceeded my expectations time and time again. But even still, I had to be sure. Be sure? Sure of what? Sure that you could be the one. The one to inherit Thor's will, his power. Thor was not a perfect person. He was not the perfect god. He struggled. At times he made mistakes, grave ones. And yet, in spite of all of that, he has always managed to persist, to move forward, to go beyond even what he thought he was capable of doing. But what does that have to do? What are your convictions, Belle Cranel? My convictions? Will you see something through to the end? Of course. Don't answer so hastily. Conviction is more than just believing in oneself. To see something through to the end, in spite of pain and loss. Your friends, they fight in this battle and they give it their all. Not fearing about tomorrow or what may come, for they know that tomorrow is guaranteed to no one. Your friend, the seer, the one of whom has premonitions. She has a great gift, but it comes at a terrible price. To see into the future, to see the dreads and the horrors that come with it. She lives her life in the perpetual state of fear. A fear of not the unknown, but of knowing too much. So much so that she does not attempt to defy fate or change it. Do you know why she feared Belle? Because you were supposed to lose your life. You were supposed to die to the Destroyer. That should have been the end for you. And before you ask, the power of Thor did not protect you in that moment. For I stripped it away. I wish to see if such a premonition would come to pass. In this moment, in your trial, I wanted to see what you would become without your power. When you saved that elf girl in the Colosseum, that was only the first part. You had the heart to keep fighting, even if you had lost your power, lost your way. But now, you must learn to let go. Let go? Let go of what? Let go of everything, Belle. Let go of this idea of yours. Let go of who you think you are and what you think people want you to be. That doesn't make any sense. How can I let go of myself and what people expect of me? At that point, what would I even be? What do you think? Belle had to think of an answer. What did he mean by this? What was the voice getting at? Let go of what people thought of him? Let go of what he thought of himself? What? Did no opinion truly matter? Did no opinion truly matter? An opinion? All of this suffering came from a mere opinion of himself? Because of what he thought of himself? Was that it? Was this some sort of game? Perhaps you do not understand me, Belle Cranel. When I say let go of what others think of you, that means do not try to live up to an image of what you think others expect. Do you know who you are, who you truly want to be? If so, why are you so hesitant? Why do you worry so much about the stigma of what others say or think around you? You had no intentions on killing your friend, even when people presumed her to be guilty of a crime. You stood by her. And what do you think of yourself, Belle? Do you think of yourself as Belle Cranel? Or do you think of yourself as Thor? You've been wrestling with that choice for a long time. So much so that you don't even know who you truly are. Are you Belle Cranel? Member of the Hestia Familia? Or are you really Thor, the god of thunder? I'm both. And yet I'm neither. Precisely. You are something different. Something entirely different. You are not the boy you used to be. And at the same time, you have not become Thor. Then who am I? What am I? What am I supposed to be? If I'm not who I used to be, but I'm not Thor, then who am I? Who? That is what you must figure out for yourself. But I will give you a glimpse I will give you a brief moment. Make it count. And then decide what you will be. As time started once more, Beta Ray would be knocked to the ground, the destroyer making his way towards him. As Beta Ray looked up, he expected for this to be how he'd go out. All the same, if he could muster up one more hit, then maybe it'd be worth it. Before he got a chance to, however, Mjolnir would be sent flying, knocking the destroyer directly in the head and knocking it to the ground. Everyone watched as Bell walked casually to the destroyer. "Bell?" Lily would ask. But he paid her no mind. He didn't pay attention to anyone. It was like he was in a trance. No one's words could reach him. Nothing being said resonated. Mjolnir returned to his side once again, the destroyer readying for another attack. However, Bell would speed blitz the destroyer. Using the hammer, he slammed it directly into the chest of the robotic monster, knocking it to the ground once again. As he jumped high into the air, all of the level around them would begin to move and shake, feeling as if the thunder had surrounded them. Bell would bring down the hammer on top of the beast itself, channeling his power throughout its entire body. The metallic armor would singe, glowing a bright red as Bell channeled everything he had into this attack. Argo Vesta! Elding Crush! Bell would drive the hammer straight through the chest of the destroyer, as its whole body would illuminate and glow into a bright, ominous red. Everyone would take cover, as a large explosion would occur then after. The destroyer being filled with the power of Thor, so much so that it became overbearing and itself imploded. As everyone looked on, watching as the smoke of the battlefield would clear away, nothing remained of the destroyer, and the only one left standing was Bell. "You... Bell!" Lily and the others would cry out to him as they raced over to his location. Hey guys, I'm really tired. Bell would fall to the ground and collapse. Before long, he eventually awoke in an infirmary. Hestia was by his side, along with Lily and a few others. "Oh, Bell! Bell, you're all right! I felt you..." "It's okay, Goddess. It's fine, really. Welcome home. Thank you." Everyone would take time to recover from their ordeal. The shockwave was felt all through Aurario by adventurers, heroes, and especially the gods. If they didn't know any better, they could have sworn that that was Thor. Only he could have mustered up that level of power, if only for a brief moment. Loki was the most perplexed of everyone. She knew for a fact that that was a level of power that only her brother possessed. So how? How the hell did Bell manage to get that far? When they checked his insignia on his back, he was still only at a level 4. But that level of strength, though, Hermes would say with a grin, that wasn't level 4. We're talking about level 10, maybe even 11. And I mean, come now, you can't be serious, Hephaestus would say. There's no way he reached a level that high in such a short period of time. Have you checked him again? We have. He's still only at a level 4. So how did he? He tapped into the power, Hercules said. It was brief, only for a short moment. But the boy managed to tap into the power, the true power of Thor. That's the true power of Thor. But surely, if Bell were to have reached a level like that, then isn't it obvious? Bell's not a god like us. He's a human who's been blessed with the power of a god. But maybe it goes further than that. Perhaps Bell has more than just merely Thor's blessing. Perhaps he is truly the incarnation of Thor himself. If so, then the boy has even greater potential. And why do you say that? Micah would ask him. Because, even if it was just a flash, the power you're all thinking of with Thor, no, that power exceeded it. Surely, Lord Takamichizuki would say, you're pulling our leg here, Hercules. Bell is impressive, no doubt, but still, to say that he's actually reached a level that he might have surpassed even Thor in his prime, but I should know. I fought against Thor more times than I can count. I know that power when I feel it. No, it may have only been for a brief moment, but that was greater than anything that I've ever felt from Thor. There was a bit of uneasiness among the gods now. Scarily to think that someone like Bell could be capable of so much. But for Hercules, he always knew. He was just waiting for the boy to stop holding back, to let loose, and show what he was truly capable of. In the meantime, Ryu was also recovering, Anasi just sitting outside on her windowsill. Lord Anasi, you don't have to get up, Ryu. I heard about what you were able to do. The power of the spider suits you well. I believe you can go farther with it. If you're willing to accept my training, that is. But why would... Before she left, she spoke to me a final time. My dearest Estrella, her heartbreak was too much to bear. She knew she could not go on. But even so, she did not forget about you. She asked me to look out and watch over you. And I have chosen to do so. If you do not wish to maintain the power, that is your right. But if you wish to keep it, it is yours. You do not need to join my familia to carry my blessing. I promised my beloved Estrella that I would watch after her precious disciple, and I will not break that promise. Goddess Estrella, she still thought about me. For so long, I had so much doubt. I always thought that I had failed her. I always thought that if I had been better, if I could have just... You never failed her. You carried her ideals. You carried that conviction. What more could be asked of a daughter? As Ryu smiled at this, it soon turned to panic once again because in the midst of everything she was feeling, there was still something else. It was Belle. Ryu would bolt out of her bed immediately, even while she was still recovering. Anasi tried to warn her about what he saw, but oh well. Sometimes you just gotta live and learn. And for Ryu, she learned the hard way as she burst through Belle's bedroom where he was recovering. And well, at that moment, the shawl that was covering her body, well, the cord was tied rather loosely and it slipped. And safe to say, Belle got a eyeful. More of an eyeful than most guys ever get a chance to see. He was quickly blinded, though, by Lily and Hestia, who were both reprimanded by the nurse for hitting Belle in the head so hard, especially when he was recovering. By the time he got discharged from the hospital, though, he and Ryu, both leaving at the same time, decided to take a walk together. A chance to see the city. They'd been through so much, and they'd learned a lot about each other. Fighting through life and death, it puts things into different perspectives. Of course, for Belle, he was just happy to know that all of his friends and precious loved ones were safe. But for Ryu, while she was grateful for all of that, there was also something else. But perhaps now wasn't the best time to bring it up. It was silly, a beautiful thought, but probably still silly for now. Belle also took the time to meet with the Panther goddess Bast, to thanking her for her assistance in sending her familia on ahead. And for Belle, he got a chance to have a meeting proper with Azari T'Challa, the Black Panther. It's so nice to finally have a proper conversation with you, Belle Cranel. Likewise, you offered a great service to me and to my familia, to all my friends. I'm grateful. If you ever need help with anything, then please, don't hesitate to ask. I appreciate the gesture, Belle. But we originally came to Orario for a different reason. A different reason? And why is that? You probably are not aware, but there are others far beyond your city walls. What? In the east, where I come from, I reside in the city of Wakanda. Wakanda is home to many other gods in that land, just as there are others in the north, and others even in the south. You, Belle, reside in Orario, the country of gods to the west. There is a city known as the city of Sakaar, the capital of the gods. In about 4 months' time from now, there will be a festival. It is called the Holy Moon Festival. And on the solstice, a tournament, the Tournament of Orion, is contested by those who have a blessing from a god. I see. And what's the purpose of the tournament? There are many things that go into it. It will take time to explain it all, but I have come to offer you an invitation to join me in the tournament. It is a team tournament. It doesn't have to consist of just one familia. No, it can be made of different people from different familias, so long as they have a blessing of a god. I wish to recruit you from my team. Will you join me, Belle Cranel? While Belle would have a lot to think about, this was still a debt that needed to be repaid. For everything you've done for me, Azari? Belle stuck out his hand. I would be more than honored. Count me in. Azari would smile as he extended his hands out to Belle, the two of them shaking on their agreement. The city of Sakar, Belle thought. The Holy Moon Festival. The Tournament of Orion. It was definitely intriguing, to say the least. But there was also something else. A part of Belle that was thrilled. A part of him that looked forward to the challenge. A tournament of familias. Warriors from across all the earth, all gathered together in one location. The ultimate contest of champions. This concludes Danmachi, The Last King. What If Belle Cranel Was Thor? Season 4, Part 10, the Season 4 finale. As always, when we get to a season finale, I like to take the time to say thank you to everyone who has followed along with this series. Even though it's been falling off a bit more compared to the others, this one does hold yet a special place in my heart because it's one of the original founding series here in the anime Marvel universe. One of the linchpin stories that was the foundation for the Avengers of the Multiverse, and a story that I hope will continue to carry on now and into the future. Thank you all for watching, taking time out of your day to enjoy this series, and I hope you will continue to support this along with everything else here on PowerCore Productions and Podcastings. Stay tuned for everything else that we've got coming out, especially for next week and for the month of April. Definitely got a lot of good things as we reach the conclusion of Part 1 of Phase 3 of the Fallout Saga. But anyway, without further ado, it's going to do it for the end of today's video. I'm Javon Harrington with PowerCore Productions and Podcastings, signing off, and I'll see you next time.